You know, ladies and gentlemen, it takes a lot for people to remember a player that was always at the center of attention in a generation long gone. Now, people over the age of 80 will remember this player in NHL history, but for those who were born in the 1950s and 60s, it doesn't ring a bell. But what a strong skater he was. Today we'll be talking about multiple Stanley Cup winner, Cy Denneny. Now, Denneny was a Canadian pro ice hockey forward who played for the Senators and Bruins in the NHL and the Toronto Blue Shirts of the NHA. His younger brother, Corbett Denneny, also played in the NHL. Now, he was born in a beautiful community called Ferrens Point, Ontario, near the great community of Cornwall. He was the son of James Israel Denneny and was a top lacrosse player in the late 19th century and was descended from the Dennenys of County Monaghan, Ireland. Now, he started playing senior hockey in Cornwall and drew a lot of interest, starting with the Cornwall Sons of England of the Lower Ottawa Valley Hockey League in 1910. His pro playing career began with the Toronto Ontario's Shamrocks of the NHA in 1914. The name of the team eventually changed during the season. He had tried out for the Montreal Canadiens in 1912, but failed to make the team, and he returned to senior hockey. He was traded to the Senators in 16 and would play there until 28. Now, 5'7", 168, the left wing with a big left wing shot, was known as one of the best snipers of his era. Now, with the Senators during the 1918 campaign, he set an NHL record by opening the season with 4 straight multi-goal games, a record that was tied in 2013 by San Jose Shark forward Patrick Marleau. Denneny was a member of 4 Senators Stanley Cup winning teams, especially in their dynasty era from 20, 21, 23, and 27. He faced his brother Corbett during the 23 Stanley Cup playoffs, a series which also featured brothers Frank and Georges Boucher. This marked the first time 2 different sets of brothers faced each other in an NHL or Big Four title series. Now, he was eventually sold to Boston in 28, where he would be an assistant playing coach of the Bruins' 29 Stanley Cup winner. In 29, he retired to become an NHL on-ice official. In 32, he rejoined the Senators as head coach, but the team was in decline due to financial difficulties, which forced management to sell top players in order to survive. The team finished last, and Denneny was not retained as coach. He was one of the top scorers in the NHL from 17 to 25, while leading the league in scoring during the 24 season. He did so by scoring 22 goals and 1 assist for a total of 23 points, the lowest winning total in NHL history. When he retired, he was the all-time top scorer in the NHL history. He was inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 59, and in 98 he was ranked number 62 on the Hockey News' list of the 100 greatest hockey players. He was the first and fastest player in the NHL history to score 200 goals in 181 games, and during a 6-week span in the 21 season, Cy and his brother Corbett, who played with Toronto St. Patrick's, each scored 6 goals during a game, a feat accomplished by only 500 players in the history of the NHL. Now, despite not being a swift skater, he was had one of the most deceptive and accurate shots in the league, which enabled him to achieve his scoring feat so rapidly. He was one of the first known players to use opposing defensemen as screens, and would beat goalies with head fakes and subsequently with shots that would often not leave the ice. Denneny was also one of the first players to use a curved blade, which he used to take high-rusting shots as well as sinkers that would fool goaltenders. He was a very physical player who often acted as an enforcer for his line mates, Jack Darar and Frank Nyber. Now, Denneny was married twice. His first wife, Melvina, died, and Denneny eventually remarried. He was the father of 2 daughters with his second wife, Isabel. After Denneny retired from hockey, he worked for the Canadian federal government and eventually retired from the civil service in 59. He died on September 10, 1970, and is buried in Ottawa's Pinecrest Cemetery. Now, 1910, the first season with the Sons of England, then 2 years with the Cornwall Internationals, 1913 with the Russell Athletics, 1914 with the Cobalt Mines of the COMHL Association, 1915 with the Russell HC and the Toronto Shamrocks, big season with the Blue Shirts in 16 when he had 24 goals and 28 points in 24 games, 3 goals in 10 games with the Senators in 1917, and 1918, of course, 36 goals and 46 points in 21 games with Ottawa. Now, consecutive seasons with Ottawa were quite strong, 18, 16, 34, 28, 21, 22, 27, 24, and 17 goals. 28 was a downturn with only 3 goals in 44 games. And, of course, the short time with Boston, which led to the Stanley Cup. NHL totals, 247 goals, 333 points in 329 games. NHA totals, 33 goals, 4 assists for 37 points in 42 contests. So 280 regular season goals and 3 goals in 16 Stanley Cup games, 16 goals in 25 NHL playoff games, and 1 goal in 2 NHA playoff contests. Now, with Boston in that 29 season, 26, 13, and 5, Ottawa 33, 11, 27, and 10, and again, of course, won the Stanley Cup with Boston. So, a distinguished career for sure. Again, the 5 Stanley Cups, 4 with Ottawa, part of that great Ottawa dynasty that a lot of people have forgotten, but remember fondly if they do recollect how strong that team was. So Cy, again, one of the most underrated superstars of his era, and I think the reason people don't talk about him anymore, because with Ottawa folding, all the Ottawa memories kind of faded away, but the tenant that came back in the 93 season when, of course, Ottawa returned to the NHL. So that's the story of the great Cy Denneny. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And don't forget, all requests are accepted and highly, highly, highly treasured. Thanks for listening. Bye.